Welcome to the channel, friends. So today's video is going to be an install video on the Polaris XP1000, and it has to do with the recent snorkel systems I put on both of these machines here. There is an 850 Premium Trail 2020, and this is the XP1000 Hunter. Now I went ahead and installed my own custom snorkel kit, which is a stealth kit. You cannot see it. I know some of you guys are interested in seeing what it looks like when everything's put together. It looks just like stock, so you cannot see any part of the snorkel system at all when it's installed on the machine. You can see the tubing just a little bit here on the rear end. So as you can see there, the exhaust tubing that routes to the front. But that being said, today's video is going to be an install video of a temperature gauge on the Polaris PVT housing. Now I'm doing this because I want to monitor the exact temperature of the clutch housing and what happens when I do some heavy duty riding. So far with the actual snorkel kit that I custom made, there haven't been any issues, no overheating or belt issues or slipping or whatever. So far very good. But going forward, I want to provide information to you guys when it comes to kind of temperatures of the clutch housing, because not that many people do that. So I'm going to go ahead and install that specific temperature sensor on the top of the belt housing, and I'll show you exactly how I'm going to mount it and everything, and see what the actual temperatures are. Now the belt housing will get somewhat hot, but there is an acceptable level of temperature or a max limit. We need to find out what that is. I'm guessing you don't want to get over 120 degrees, 130. So if you stay below 130, you should be fine. But time will tell and how it performs and things like that. I will say my snorkel kit uses a smooth bore tubing, which is different from others offered out there. Now, if you have a spiral wound or the inside of the tubing is or has protrusions, that can cause extra turbulence and prevent smooth airflow. Now, my kit, my tubing that I offer is a smooth bore, and it takes fresh, cool air from the front here, from the front vent. So very important. It's taking in cooler air versus the factory setup, which takes in hot air off the motor underneath the seat, and it's much lower. I'm gaining about 10 inches or so from where I mount it, and I'm pushing it forward, which helps because usually when you get stuck in a mud hole or a water hole, it's the back end of the machine stuck first, and the top or the front end of the machine is always up in the air because just the nature of the rider being on the back of the machine, it's back heavy. But I want to do a performance test, like I said, and offer information when it comes to temperatures of the clutch housing, because no one does this, and I think it's important. There are some snowmobilers that are pretty hardcore and do this modification on their machines to monitor the actual clutch housing. I've seen some on UTVs as well, like the Razor. Some people put temperature gauges on there. I think it's a great idea, especially if you start doing some heavy modification on your machine. You have snorkel kits, things like that. You want to keep an eye on that temperature. Very important. But I have confidence that the kit that I put together is a professional kit, and it's routed properly to take in cooler, fresher air, which is super important for belt life. So I want to go ahead now and show you guys the components in the workshop here. All right, so here we have the Moose digital thermometer, as you can see here. Some information. Flip it over, gives you some specs on it. So it's water and shock resistant, which is really important, and it gives us the temperature range that we're looking for. So from 32 to 482. That's great. That's what we're going to be using exactly for this. Yeah, it gives you a generous amount of length for the wiring. Really nice professional wiring on this, heat shrunk and everything. Really nice display. I have the same kind of display on my snowblower for a tachometer. So moving along, we have all the related components like some Velcro to mount it, battery, zip ties, a temperature logbook, that's nice, and instructions. So that there is the kit I'll be installing on the machine today. It looks like a straightforward install and should be an easy process. So let me go ahead and start taking the seat off and evaluating the location for this temperature sensor and what is the best spot. Alright, so I'm installing the battery, and I do want to note that the circuit board says run leader, if you can see right there. That's the same manufacturer of the temp gauge, sorry, the tachometer that I have on my snowblower. So it's relabeled Moose Utility Division, but it is a run leader device. Alright, so I went ahead and set up the device. I went ahead and switched over to Fahrenheit because I'm in New Hampshire, USA. And I also went ahead and set up the reminder or alert for 140 degrees, so it reminds me that I'm hitting 140 as a high limit that I set. It can be set to whatever you want. So, and then also there's a max reading, so it'll read out the max temperature. It has red during the whole ride, and I believe when you shut the machine off, it will give you the max reading as well. So to get to this menu, you want to basically turn on the backlight first, then click this twice. That gives you the reminder setting, which is 140 degrees Fahrenheit, your warning limit. And then click it one more time, and there is the max. I just blew on it with my breath, and that's why it's 70 point whatever. It does take some time to heat up, as there is some mass in that brass for the sensor. So very handy features. You want to basically know what your max is for the day after a ride, and it's good that it has a reminder that you can set to whatever you want. So now I'm going to go ahead now and mount this on the upper dash of the ATV and find a nice spot for it. Alright guys, so here it is. The install went pretty easy. I went ahead and drilled a hole just smaller than the thread size on this, which is a 1/8-27 NPT. So I basically threaded this exhaust port, and pretty much this will thread in, and I installed it with RTV before I applied the washer, and I RTV'd the threads, and pretty much this thing was just oozing RTV silicone, and then I installed it and threaded it on, and then installed the washer in the nut on the inside so nothing comes apart, and I routed it all the way up to the dash. Also, what I noticed here, right there, if you guys can't see that, see if I can get some light in there. So the old belt that fell apart on my previous video, it actually scored up the plastic, and there is a hole on the bottom here on the housing. So now I'm gonna have to clean this up and epoxy this, make sure that it's completely sealed, because there is light. Let's see if I can show you guys on camera. It's kind of difficult to see, but if I install this light under here, I can see with my naked eye that there's light shining through, just a couple spots, very small, not a big gaping hole. So it's a good thing I caught that. I did not notice that when I installed the belt because it was on the other side and I really wasn't looking, but it basically shredded that sharp corner there of the plastic housing, and it made holes which would obviously leak when I go in deep water. So I'm gonna go ahead and take care of that as well, because I definitely want a watertight system. I mean, pretty much you can see right there where the belt fell apart, and the cords, the Kevlar belt material, just basically was whipping around in there and basically scuffed up and scored grooves in the plastic, which is not good. So if you guys ever destroy a belt, it's a good idea to inspect your housing, because you probably gouged a hole in it like I did here without knowing. So that's something I noticed when I was installing the temperature sensor, but the install of the sensor went really well, and I'll show you the rest of the install. So as we make our way around, you can see I routed the wire this way, kind of underneath with the rest of the wiring harness, through here, around this cable. I forget what this cable is. I think this is for the throttle. But anyways, I bird nested all the wires neatly here and then routed it up and through. I left some generous amount of slack here so when I turn the handlebars, it's not going to pull this thing tight. There's plenty of slack in that, and it should not, you know, bind or anything. This is where I installed the gauge. As you can see there, 60 degrees even right now. I think this is a good spot because I can see it easily when I'm riding, and if I plan on changing it, I'll just might put it down here just because I don't want to see that wire. But I'm going to leave it there for right now and see how it works. But really happy with the way it came out. You know, really simple install. I made sure to zip tie everything. That way it's secure and doesn't rub. The wire on this is really high quality. It almost feels like a silicone material. The jacket on it, so it's really nice. But I'm really happy with the way it looks and the way it came out. And that's just a great spot because it's right on the direct stream of hot air coming out of the box. So that's a great location. At first I thought about doing it right here, which is a nice flat spot. But the thing is, I could not reach and I did not want to take everything apart just to install the sensor. But another location would be right here, but it is close to the belt because it's kind of on the top of that peak. The belt sits right here on center, so it's kind of not a good idea to put it there. So right there is good. So when it heats up, this is going to compress and kind of conform better to the nut and washer. So I'm not worried, especially with all that RTV silicone that's on there. So it's going to have a complete watertight seal. But that was the install in a nutshell. I also went ahead and did my own zip tie mod to the airbox cover. So the Polaris ATVs, this style airbox, this trap door to get to the filter, the bottom has a lot of play because of the slots. They're kind of made oversized. So I put zip ties in the slot, which pushes the cover forward more and creates a better seal because the bottom is what kind of lacks a good seal. Now it's solid. The seal on this is a pretty decent seal. It's just kind of a poor design because the bottom slots are just way too big. So by putting those zip ties in there, it kind of cinches everything up and compresses that seal better, and you have a better tight fit on the cover itself. I went ahead and did the same thing to my girlfriend's machine, obviously, and I'm getting this machine ready for the ride tomorrow. I'm going to go hit some deep water, not too deep. I'm not going to be up over the gas tank or anything, but I'm going to get it pretty close. I'm probably going to get it to like right here to test out the snorkels and see how everything goes. And I'm happy that obviously the gauge is installed and I can see what my temperatures are for the PVT. Another thing I want to do when you're riding in deep water is to pack the spark plug boots and the ignition coil boots with dielectric grease. Because if you get water in those boots, what can happen is you're going to start misfiring and the machine's going to sputter and not have a lot of power. So you don't want to have that kind of situation when you're in the middle of a water hole or a mud hole. So I'm going to go ahead and prep these with some dielectric grease, just pack them in there and then just install them. And that should take care of that situation. So I did encounter one occasion where my girlfriend's machine, when I was pressure washing it with the big pressure washer, which is a 4,000 plus PSI machine, I had it turned down to about 2,500 at the time. But I did get some water somewhere when everything was installed. So the seat was on, plastics were on, and the machine started sputtering at low speed. It would not rev. There was no like diagnostic code or anything. It was just running like crap. So it would not even like move when it was in gear. So what I did was I let it idle for like 5 minutes, 10 minutes straight. It cooked off all that water as it was warming up, and then it was fine. That's the only situation where I've had like a weird misfire kind of sputtering of the motor, and that's because of water in the spark plugs. So never had an issue with this machine. It just must be sealed up better somehow. But it's a good idea to install that dielectric grease as a peace of mind, and I'm going to go ahead and do that. But tomorrow I'm going to go hit up some trails nearby here. Lots of water, lots of mud, and I'm going to put the snorkels through the paces, and I'll get some footage of that, so stay tuned for that video. But pretty much this is going to be it for the video, and I'm happy with the install of the temp gauge on the PVT housing, and it should provide good amount of information for me on each ride. So with that being said, guys, I really hope you enjoyed the video, and if you have any questions or comments, please place them right down below. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel already, please go ahead and do so. I want to thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you on the next video.